Welcome to PVPN. I am your local realtor and host, Joe Alessi, and today we have all four presidents from the Little Leagues up on the Palos Verdes Peninsula today. So let's get ready to crush it with these guys and see what's going on. All right, we are approaching the end of March here in 2024. It's springtime, and usually that means baseball for a lot of people. And today we are very fortunate to have the four presidents from all the leagues up on the Palos Verdes Peninsula with us today. And the Little League started in 1939, been 85 years ago. For the most part, the leagues up here on the hill started in 1954, so about 70 years of history with us today. And I first want to start off with each person just quickly introducing themselves so we know where everybody's from, if you could.
Sure, Joe. Thanks for having us. My name's Tony Tootell. I'm the president of Rolling Hills Little League. We are coming up on our 70th year of playing baseball on the Hill. I'm the president for this, my first year, and will serve for 2 terms. I actually grew up playing Little League in Hermosa Beach Little League, which is one of the 8 leagues in District 36 that we all play for.
My name is Michael Diehl. I'm the president of Silver Spur Little League. I've been involved with the league for the last 8 years, coaching teams, helping with the board, and then starting this summer, I was the president of the league. And it's been an exciting process in watching the league grow and flourish.
Thanks for having us, Joe. I'm Pat Carey. I'm the president of Ladonna Bay Little League. I actually played Rolling Hills Little League as a kid. But this is my first year as president, my 4th year involved in running the league, and I'm happy to be here.
Ben Aaron, currently serving as the president of Palos Verdes Little League. I grew up locally, but over on Camden Island, so I played Little League in Avalon there, where you played from 7 years old all the way to 14 in one pot. So against kids and little kids and everyone. This is my 2nd year and final year serving as the president for PVLL. Been in the league for 9 years now with my 4 kids. Having a blast and can't believe it's about to end.
Wonderful. Joe Alessi. I am a broker associate with Remax Estate Properties. So the beauty of our industry is consumers have choices all over the place. What they don't know when it comes to real estate is what to really look for. So things that they should think about is looking for someone that will do the little things. I will lose a deal before I allow someone to do something that's not going to benefit them. I tend to become friends with many of the people I work with. This is not a one and done type of business. This is a lifelong relationship once it starts. So I would like to dig into initially on enrollment just to give people a sense, because not all the leagues are, the same size, but let's talk about just quickly, just how many kids do you have in the...
Sure, Joe. Yeah, the Little League on the Hill is a little unique that it's the only sport that has 4 different leagues. ASO soccer is the whole hill. We were talking about PV softball earlier. That's the whole hill. Basketball now, PVYBL. So obviously having the 4 leagues, the enrollment is, and Little League drew the boundaries. And so our enrollment this year is up again. We're about, I think, 425 kids. I've been involved with the league for this is my 10th year, and it's been growing that whole time. And we obviously, where we lose kids, to your point, is kind of when you go to kid pitch. That's when a lot of kids decide baseball is not for them. But we really try and focus on getting those kids in at T-ball. Especially Little League in my time lowered that age from 5 years old to 4 years old. So we have 4-year-olds coming in and trying to play baseball and getting them in and giving them a safe environment and a developmental environment to do that. And then being able to build something that will keep them there through 12, or now with Junior League, as Ben was talking about in Carey, through 14 if they want to continue playing in a Little League baseball environment.
Okay, so 430 some odd kids a year.
Yes.
How about you, Michael?
We're 160 kids. And again, we're divvied up geographically and then also by the school district. And so for our league, we're more bottom weighted, as all the leagues are, on the smaller kids, T-ball and farm. And then as you get into the older divisions, the 12U divisions, this year we have 2 teams, which is it's uncommon for us. Sometimes we're down to one. And so a lot of kids have left Little League. They've gone to play travel ball, and we made a bigger push this year to get those kids back in and having fun with their friends and developing with them. So that was a great push, got those kids back. You see a lot of smiles on their faces and good things are happening. So I'm excited about that change.
Yeah, we have, at least since I've been around, the most we've had. We're over 300 this year, which is big for us. When I first started, we were at about, 210, 220. But like Tony was saying, you can see the taper down as the kids get older that we're trying to do better at. We have, it's actually exact numbers. We have 10 T-ball teams. Then the next level is rookie. We have 8 rookie teams. Then we go minors, 6 teams. Intermediate, 4 teams. Majors, 2 teams. So it's literally shrinking as they get older. So we're doing our best, like all the leagues, to try to keep everyone around. When I was a kid playing Rolling Hills, I think we had, more than 6 majors teams, if not higher. So, as Tony was saying, a lot of kids, or Michael was saying, play club ball, and we try to work together, us 4, to try to keep everyone around. So all the kids play, and it's a fun experience, for everyone.
Yeah, PVLL this year has 460 total registrants from top to bottom. Before COVID, we used to be around 550 or so. So we've probably had some amount of attrition. I think the other, obviously, COVID has changed everything in all of life. But I think club plus COVID has led to the attrition where we all find ourselves now. And I think a lot of us are probably 10, 15, 20% below maybe what we were pre-COVID levels. And I think that's what COVID did. Is it drove a lot of kids to go, the kids that really wanted it had to go full club only, because most of the local little leagues weren't able to maintain, with health standards and fields not being ours and all of that. So I think you saw a lot of kids go full-time year-round travel ball at that point, kind of turn their backs on what we call rec ball, recreational leagues, which is what Little League is. And so, I think we're all kind of pushing back against that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think one thing we could agree on is baseball is, I believe, the best sport as a kid to be involved in for the community. With Lanada Bay, you could see the fields driving by Beasley Drive West, right? The Rolling Hills fields are absolutely gorgeous, the setting, right? You've got a field down in Malaga Cove as well as one sitting in Belmonte, and then you have the parks where, you can have horses going by, and so it's a very unique setting. The parade, which we'll dig into in a little bit, is really, really cool. So I think that element is so important. So yeah, and I know that's a big effort for everyone to figure out, how do you keep these kids in the sport, and how do you get the ones that specialize and try to think that, club ball is the only way for them to become a pro, which we all know the amount of kids that become pro is very small. So on that note, outside of enrollment, what would be your biggest challenge as president of the league? Is there a thing that you focus on, a lot of your attention outside? And then here, again, I played at Rolling Hills in the late 70s. My boys played, 15, 20 years ago at Rolling Hills as well. Parents is always a big challenge, right? Let's admit it. The parents can get very intense. Not just parents, grandparents, you've got the family there. So you could have that side of it, which we all know is part of the game. Are you still dealing with that today? How do you try to temper that and bring the parents into the fold in a way that obviously cheering for your kid in a positive manner and keeping it real?
I don't know. I could say every year you try to think that that's going to be the year that you're not going to have drama, right? We try to have meetings. I'm sure everybody does it. Meetings with all the coaches, get them in the same room. But inevitably, that drama unfolds itself. I think the competitive nature of baseball, the parents that are drawn to it, I don't think there's quite much of a way around that. You just kind of deal with things as they come up. To me, I remember when my son was 4 years old in T-ball, and whoever was running the league at that time, they kind of pushed us to the side, and they're like, "Hey, we're the big fish. The 11 and 12-year-olds, just go do your T-ball thing." And carry on. So to me, the biggest challenge is we hope to have the T-ballers having, of course, have them feel just as involved or as a part of the league as the kids that are in majors and upper divisions. And we've been trying to, I was just telling the guys before we started, we put some T-ball games on our main major field so that they can experience that.
That's cool.
So yeah, that's what we've been working on over at Lenata Bay.
For Silver Spur, it's about setting expectations. And so from a cultural standpoint, it's about fun and development. And so if you take the winning and losing out of the equation, especially for the younger squads, it's about where were you at the beginning of the season and where did you end up at the end of the season? And so doing that in an environment where they're enjoying the process and enjoying the game keeps them playing again the next year. And that's a really important part, is just culturally kind of getting that, all the coaches on board, having the parents understand that. And so while the start of the season might be a little bit more bumpy than some people's liking, by the end of the season, they're playing their best ball, but the entire time they got a smile on their face and they're ready to play more.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's interesting you mentioned the club ball. Club ball, and a couple of our kids play fall travel baseball, and they come back and they stop and they play during the Little League season. It's given some perspective in terms of that the Little League season is for fun. They're playing with their friends. They're playing against their friends.
Yeah.
They're pitching. I had a game yesterday, and my on-deck batter goes, "Oh, that's my friend pitching," right? And you go, okay, and that you don't get in the travel ball.
Right.
And then the parent involvement is that, unlike other sports on the Hill, and I know they've opening ceremonies for basketball and stuff, I still think Little League does the best at the community involvement of the baseball and the non-baseball. The parade, obviously, but the snack shack, right? Movie nights, campouts, home run derbies, all the non-baseball stuff that brings people down to the fields is something that's unique to Little League, and especially Little League on the Hill, that then it's not just about the winning and losing, it's about the community.
Yeah, I think I like what Michael said, expectations and development. I think you have to be really, really, really clear in what the role and goal is of Little League baseball. You mentioned it, Joe, in a big, significant way. Little League baseball feels like the number one youth sport, especially where we're at. I mean, our fields, Little League baseball as a whole has such a dose of kind of Americana and nostalgia, right? The other thing is that the sport of baseball, I think, nowadays in professional baseball, all the analytic era that we're in and all these data points, there's thousands to tens of thousands of data points in a game of baseball. Every single pitch, every single swing, every single throw, all those things can be analyzed. And so, if you're not clear with your expectations about what the goal is of what you're doing, then all of those things can just run rampant, right? Because then you have parents that are chirping on every single pitch, any single call in the field, all of those sorts of things. A lot of us use youth umpires, right? So a lot of us have 12, 13, 14-year-old kids that umpire the field, umpire of some of the games. And I had a kid, he was on my team last year, and I was a 13-year-old, and he was umping in my game on Tuesday night, and he was like, line out, tag at first base, runners coming back. And, I still think that he probably missed the call. But he was on my team last year, and I'm like, I go to the home plate umpire, and I'm like, why don't you go talk to him? Why don't you go talk to him and see what's going on? And it's just funny because when we're in between the lines, I'm sure all of us are very competitive people, right?
Are you, and in that instance, are you allowing them to maybe get together with the other?
Yeah, exactly. So you're asking the adult paid umpire to convene with the youth umpire to help him out, to kind of support him and talk about the call and all those kinds of things, right? Anyways, it's just a perfect example of that fine line that you're walking of community development, having fun all together, and yet still, I'm never going to shy away from the competitive aspect of what we're doing, because competition breeds, it's goal setting, right? You want to set a goal and you want to achieve in your goals. And when there is runs being scored and outs being tallied, which is not at every level, at the younger levels, we don't keep score, we don't count outs, all of that. But when you start to maintain scores and outs and records, then yeah, you want to strive after being as excellent and as dedicated as you can to those kinds of things. And that's always that push and that pull, that tension that you're always trying to find.
And Ben, that is a beautiful segue into the competitive element, where I still have my trophy from 1978. I think I showed you guys. And this is the beauty, again, of why you want to play sports, right? So coming into this interview, I reached out to all my buddies and we were talking about this particular game in Rolling Hills in 78 where I played in the Phillies. So I was on the Dodgers and we still are arguing about, what happened in that game. And I happened to be in center field. I made this diving catch at the end and I looked around and I looked up, the ball's in my mitt, so they called them out. Catch that, right? So it's still to this day, 40 some odd years later, right? And that's the beauty of it. And club ballers
haven't changed at all.
Yeah.
No, right?
You took the kitchen table to bring it here today? Is it just rested it out?
I did have to dust it off. It's a box. So,
out of its case.
Yeah. But this is what you can't get, right? If you're just specialized and play in club ball. And listen, back then, we didn't play the other leagues, right? The only chance you got to play Lanada Bay or PV at Rolling Hills or Silver Spurs if you made the All-Star team.
Yeah.
And I do remember that. We went to Lanada Bay, and it was awesome because I actually went to school at Margate, PVIS, and so I knew a lot of the guys, but never did I get to play against them. So I still have memories from that, and it's fantastic. So obviously, things have changed. There's interleague play, which we'll dig into a little bit. But let's dig into, just give us a flavor for tryouts and draft. So tryouts, what people typically think of is, okay, you got your kid coming up there, you're going to throw some balls to him, see how he's going to hit it, and maybe see how well he can throw it, and then field it. Is that pretty much what's happening at tryouts? And are you grading these guys?
Yeah, so hey, let me stop you right there. Because one of the most important things you learn is that you don't call them tryout.
Oh.
You call them evaluation.
Oh.
Yeah, because everyone will get selected.
Okay.
Nobody is trying out. There are no cuts. Yeah, if you pay your registration fee, you're going to get a uniform.
That was a 78 term. Pardon me.
But yeah, go ahead. Same.
The same way. And actually, we've had to pivot this year because of the rain and actually did some tryouts inside, which actually worked well. But it's really to give the kids a chance to get out there and see their friends and play, to give us a chance to, what I think the point of the draft is to make even as much as we can competitive teams, right? And I've been on teams that have won the league and the playoffs. I've been on teams that have finished last. And, and there's everything in between. But what you're trying to get is to evaluate the players, especially players that maybe knew or worked a lot in the off season, or maybe have played travel ball and have made, set some goals and reached them, and get it so that you have an even draft in terms of the teams and get competitive. And that's really the goal, obviously. And then looking out to make sure that the kids are appropriately placed in the right division that's best for their baseball development. Right. Because a lot of parents, you mentioned this, want their kid to play May 8. And we do, Little League does, and we have to follow it, age-based, not grade-based. So sometimes a kid is older or younger for his grade, and maybe he's not with his friends, and that becomes, initially an issue. But I actually think one of the great things about Little League Baseball on the Hill and the different leagues is once you move from the developmental leagues to the draft, you're not necessarily on a team with your friends. And you're getting to meet other kids on the Hill because there's 12 elementary schools that feed to 3 middle schools that feed to 2 high schools. You're going to be mixed with those kids at some point. To play on the same team with your, same group from T-ball all the way through, you don't get to meet all of them. So that's one of the great things about the draft, but also the point of the evaluations, and that is to get even teams and to get the kids in the best place for them so that then, as we talked about, they continue playing baseball because they had a good experience.
And speaking of, focusing on majors, with only 2, I think the most teams any league has is 3.
Yeah.
4. You have 4. Okay. Again, going back to even when my son played back in 07, 08, you had 6 to 8 teams still at that time. And it gets a little bit more intense. The dads are there and they're trying to jock, my kid shouldn't be ranked here. And everyone's trying to, say where their kid should be. And one difference too, I think, and maybe this is as well, Pat, when you played at Rolling Hills, once you were on a major league team back then, you stayed there however long you were in, right? Which doesn't happen anymore, right? It changes every year. So that's changed as well. Anything anyone want to add?
One of the fun you mentioned about, dads kind of sticking to each other. That's one of the fun parts of the kind of games that happens, right? Because evaluations, so, these are all volunteer-based leagues, right? It's all built on the backs of all of our amazing volunteers. You have a lot of coaches and managers that you need. People need to volunteer and all of that. And as you go up, the food chain and you get higher up, and that kind of all distills out to the ones that really care about it the most, right? And usually that means they're the most competitive as well. And by that time, we've all been in the league with a lot of these kids. So like this year, majors mostly are 12-year-olds, a handful of 11-year-olds. most of that I've been playing for 5, 6, 7 years. So you have a pretty good understanding going into evaluations and into the draft where these kids kind of line up. But to Tony's point, somebody might have put in a lot of work in fall and they come back a little bit better.
Or you got a new,
Or they grew.
It's always that one. They grew a bunch, kid. And so it's always that fun kind of balance of like, you're looking for the diamond in the rough, and then you're sticking it to your buddy that you usually coach with in fall, but now you're going against him, and his kid, you're going to rate him higher than your kid, so he gets a higher draft slot. So there's a lot of fun that goes into all that kind of stuff, and just realizing, where we're at with all these things. And parity is always the goal, right? You want to have fun, successful season where it's not one team here, and a couple teams in the middle. You want to have good competitive baseball from the beginning to the end, and trying to do that in balanced ways possible.
So teams are set now, and one of the beautiful elements that I love, and again, I got to do it as a kid, my boys, etc., is the parades. And this was fun for me because I'm only used to the Rolling Hills side. So as I went out to try to get a feel for all the different ones, Silver Spur has a really cool thing that you just do with the teams. And what I liked about what you did was how the T-ballers were kind of going through the major league kids. They're creating that tunnel and they're running around the bases. And there was an amazing feel for the younger kids with the older kids, which I really loved. Didn't realize that at Lanada Bay that you guys literally walk from, Palos Verdes High School through the market area by the fountain and then along the drive to the field, which was neat. And then I think, PV, although I heard this year was only in the...
We've scaled it down.
Yeah, in the home streets, right, not on the drive.
Right around our field, yeah.
And then the one that I've always been used to, which I think is, again, it's beautiful how it starts at Rancho Vista and then, takes you all along PV Drive north there to the field. They're phenomenal. Just gives everyone a sense that doesn't maybe understand this process. Like, there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, we're talking police in certain instances having to block the road, right? Just hiring that, all the floats that get decorated. Give us a flavor of what that's like for you guys, and then just for the league in general.
And we have to share, because we're in PV Estates, we got to share the same police department. So the planning and logistics is insane to make sure you got, we have 300, they've got close to 500, that everybody's lined up. And we're walking, mind you.
Yeah.
So I went to Rolling Hills, and when I got to Lanada Bay, I was like, we got to be like Rolling Hills. We got to do the clothes. We got to do the card. Because that's how I did it.
Right.
And the people in Lanada Bay, so we're in Lanada Bay, like, no,
that's not how we roll here.
But we do. Not like, but keeping those kids from running and going ahead of the pack is insane. But the logistics of the police department. So this year we're supposed to start at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. sharp. And the police say, hey, we got to get to PV Little League. Yeah. We're starting right now. It was like 7:48. We're like, we're not ready. So it's chaos, but then you get onto the field and it all comes together.
Yeah. For us, it's almost like this nostalgia, but it's like the beginning of the great graduation ceremony, right? So the 12U's will come out there and they're going to make the tunnel, and the T-ballers come by and they high five, and they still don't know to run to first yet and run around the bases. So they got their banners and they're all excited and hats and all that. And so it's an exciting moment, but especially for like those 12U's who remember being the T-ballers and getting the high five. Now they're giving the high five, and to have that whole experience kind of start off the seasons, it's a good moment for everybody.
Talked about competitiveness. The coaches get competitive on the float. The
right.
decorating.
Well, is there a prize for?
Yes, every division gets a first place. So yes, I think I've won it once. That was not due to...
There are some amazing floats. They do some amazing jobs to some of these.
All out.
Yeah.
All out. Yeah. I was just going to say, I think my Apple Watch just told me my heart rate is soaring, because just talking about opening Banging Parade gives me so much PTSD. Like, it's so nice to have that beyond in the past, and now you're just like getting into the season. Yeah. We were rained out last year, and then there's like threats of rain again this year and all of that. And but like Tony said, it's all amazing volunteers. Some of these moms mostly, and some dads are working for literally months before, getting permits in with the city, permits in with the police, and then trying to keep the teams a little bit under wraps so they don't, show up with a double. We used to have double-decker buses, literally had a horse-drawn carriage one time. You have to be careful about how big some of these people want to go, but it's amazing, and it's tons of fun. Full disclosure, I cannot stand the parade. Everyone in my league kind of knows that, but the kids, it blows their minds. They have so much fun.
We got to rain on our parade.
I know.
Yeah, don't have to.
It's so glad to them.
So let's talk about the season, because now, again, it's changed over the years, right? You used to just play within your own league, create a champion, and then have, the king of the hill, right? So now, how do you guys schedule amongst yourselves? Obviously, all year long, it's interleague play with the few teams that we have now. And how are you, if you have two teams, obviously one of them just going to be the champion, right? How is that all working collectively with yourselves and just creating the chant, right? And then tell us how does that lead? How do you determine who gets to go to play King of the Hill?
So we take turns doing the schedule. And when I say PTSD, like Ben for the parade, Want My Atv did the schedule this year. And if you looked at this Excel spreadsheet, you'd have a heart attack. And thankfully, I got help from everyone, but mainly Mark Baranek and Paul Hamilton, who have done it before. But there's mathematical formulas that go into it. And we try to make sure that we all play still mostly against our home teams. Like, we still want to do that. But also play interleague, so we get a chance to play at each field. This year, we're actually doing something different with Silver Spur. We're even doing interleague with our minors teams. So we get to, some of our minors teams get to go to Ernie Howlett. They get to come to Want My Atv. But it's again, like the draft, we try to balance. We want to make sure the teams playing each other are equal. And then, at least speaking for Want My Atv, we just compile one set of standings. I don't know, do you guys separate your standings interleague and not?
Points, 1 point for interleague, 2 points for intra-league.
Oh, okay.
And it's just points.
So on a point system is how you're...
That's how our rankings go in our league. Yeah, who's the winner. But we have regular season, which is just seeding for the postseason tournament.
Correct. Every team
has a little bit more league. Yeah.
And how many games do you have to play for the regular season? How many are played?
Yeah, our league, our PVLL majors this year is 15 games. So the way that we're doing is we play... we have four majors teams, so each team plays each other 3 times. So there's 9 intra-league games, 9 games inside of your league, and then 6 other games across everyone else.
Is there an added challenge with pitchers? Because obviously, how many... Is it actual innings now, or is it just how many pitching?
However many pitches you throw.
And how many...
coming down from the top.
75? What is it now?
Yeah, 85.
85 pitches.
85. Each league does a little bit different, but Little League International has their pitching regulations. Mm-hmm. It's by age, so 2-year chunks. So 11 and 12-year-old kids can throw up to 85 pitches in a single day. 9 and 10-year-olds can throw up to 75. 8 and 9-year-olds can throw up to 65. In our league, we reduce that by 10 free spring break. Mm-hmm. So like right now, my 12-year-old pitchers can throw 65 pitches a game. After spring break, up to 75. When we make it to All-Stars, technically, you could do 85. And then there's days rest. So depending on how many pitches you throw each day, that pitcher can't throw for a certain number of days after that.
And that's where it becomes relevant to the schedule, right? And that's where Tony's team really helped me with. We try to make sure that you don't, that the teams playing each other are on equal days rest, right? So if you're playing on a Monday, you're making sure that both teams played on the Saturday so that it's fair and it's not stacked against each other.
And that's one of the other things, unlike other sports, we're playing, the idea is your team, all of our teams are playing a game on Saturday and then a game on a weekday, a Monday through Thursday. Now you do that, Saturday to Monday is only 1 day rest, right? Thursday to Saturday is only 1 day rest, so you have to manage those. We have a bye actually this Saturday because we play a Thursday and then a Monday. But it's all for arm care. And what it also does is, talking about player development, you can't just use 2 pitchers your entire season because that will not work. So you have to, as coaches, 1, in the evaluations, look for potential pitchers. 2, during the season, develop them. And 3, hopefully throughout your season, at least have 3 or 4, if not 5 pitchers you can go to, because you will, despite how well Paul and Mark and Pat did on the schedule, there is short rest. You're going to have a couple games of short rest, and that's when those other kids actually get opportunities to, get on the mound.
And then something that we're doing with the smaller kids, so the 8-9-year-olds, so Silver Spur historically, just to keep the game kind of moving along, we would use a pitching machine for the first couple innings and then go kid pitch. But with Want My Atv, they're all kid pitch at that level. And so Pat said, hey, let's just go all kid pitch. We talked to our coaches about it, and what it does is, 1, it develops a better interest across the entire team. More innings, more reps, and more kids are going to get the opportunity to pitch. 2, we obviously limit kind of the rules around it so they're not in a mental situation where they're just walking kids. Coaches then would come in and help clean up some batters in different situations. But it's great to start at that age where it's just simple fastball and maybe what they would consider a changeup. But you're going to get kids pitching more and more kids pitching, and then ultimately it will lead all the way up to the 12-year-olds where you have more arms to pick from.
So when it comes to King of the Hill, is there still one team from each league? And how are we doing that format? What's happening?
Oh, the all the rating news.
We got some music, special music.
Jeff Sass, the Twitter.
Oh,
But it's not because we're choosing not to do it. We're actually considering expanding King of the Hill, and we're doing what's called Tournament of Champions, which I don't know when that began, but
A catchy name.
yeah, Tournament of Champions. So it's there's 4 leagues on the hill, which typically do the King of the Hill, and then there's 4 leagues in the beach cities. So I don't think that they've ever done a beach cities.
They tried to do their own thing, but that's why we defaulted to TOC.
Yeah, so we're doing a tournament with the champions from all of our leagues, major.
so there's 8 total.
Yeah, 8 total.
36.
Yes. The majors champion from each league, and then the intermediate champion from our leagues. They call it, I think, in the beach cities, AAA.
AAA.
And then there's going to be just a single elimination 8-team tournament to determine the tournament.
And that's held at all the different fields.
Yeah.
Correct.
Rotating around the South Bay.
And it doesn't matter if you've got 8 teams in your league or 2, and you're still you're sending one team from each league.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and TOC has been around for a while, so traditionally we're juggling TOC and KOH, King of the Hill. So you kind of decide, like in our league, the way that we did it in the past is whoever wins the tournament, the postseason tournament, gets to decide, do you want to go into KOH or TOC? Because King of the Hill is a lot more fun. You just stay up here, and it's everyone you know. Tournament champions, it's cool to go to some of the other places, but you don't really know them as much. So the kind of neighborhood competition that we get up on the hill is a lot.
Yeah, and I've played in both of those. The King of the Hill is only at max 2 games, though.
Right. Yeah.
Tournament champions, and we played down at Redondo, so we were playing at 7 at night, 8 at night under the lights, which was, and a bunch of people came down to watch the championship game. That was fun. It happened to be, I think, against a PV team.
It was.
Yeah, so it was a fun to have 2 hill
knuckleballs.
to have 2 hill
But knuckleballs that night.
to have 2 hill teams representing the hill at the tournament champions against each other, knowing that a team from the hill was going to win was.
Harry Park is awesome.
And we're hosting. Us 4 are hosting all the other leagues.
Oh, nice.
At least at the beginning. I think the championship will be in Hermosa Beach.
Very cool.
First week in June. Come out.
All right, so one thing I want to hit on is the snack shack. So again, I always like to bring back memories. So for me as a kid in the late 70s, our snack shack would burn down every couple of years. Someone would set it on fire.
Please don't.
So every time it would always have to get built.
It's made out of cinder blocks.
Right, so now it's not made out of wood, right? It's made out of concrete, right? So it's changed over the years. And back then it was cool. Anytime there was a foul ball, there was like about 8 kids running for that thing because they got to get a snow cone if they brought it to the snack shack. So very cool. But now I would assume it's an important revenue generator for the leagues, yes or no? And it's like it's a huge effort because you've got the parents that have to, do certain shifts throughout the year. So everyone's involved. But as you kind of touched on earlier too, Ben, coming down and just enjoy the game. Come down, have a burger, have a dog. You don't have to have a kid in the league. Come down and see some of the kids play and hang out with your friends that you probably know. So let's hit on the snack shack.
Well, it's twofold, though. One is, yes, revenue generation helps the league very much. But the other one is that it's a cultural thing. And so you want to get those kids, and parents are spending hours on that field. Between practices and games, they are spending a lot of time there. And so for the kid to go out and just go junk food crazy or candy crazy is okay. It's baseball season. And so off you send them, and culturally you get them comfortable, and that's part of the fun and part of the experience. They're doing that. They're hanging out with their buddies. They're eating, Warheads or whatever the candy du jour is at the time, and having fun in the dugout and just enjoying it. And so I think that's a big part of it for probably all of the leagues, is really just getting a culture down and having it starts with the kids having fun, and candy and junk food and hot dogs is a big part of that.
I mean, I'll tell you, if I were to ask my kids every night what they want for dinner, they'd say snacks. They want to go to the fields, even though they're not playing. They also know the schedule. They'll know that, one friend's playing another friend, right? Yeah. But also a lot of us have a practice cage session or something during the week. So you'll go and you'll have cages and then you'll eat at the snack shack after. Or when I was coaching 2 teams, you were there all day Saturday. Yeah. And that was your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But it does get, again, the parent involvement. Someone's working the grill, someone's in the snack shack. We have older siblings work, the youth umps will come work. And it's really that you can go down there and add that extra element of being at the fields, especially because baseball can be boring for younger kids and it gives them something to do and look forward to, and then they get a bunch of sugar and can go, running around and having a good time. But I look forward to going to the snack shacks over at, Lenata Bay and PV and getting a burger over there, and there's some competition there too.
Right. I mean, they've been really turned into mini restaurants. I mean, they're pretty sophisticated.
Well, we have to be permitted as mini restaurants.
Oh, really? Interesting.
LA Cat.
No, that's a whole nother.
I love what Michael said. Michael said the key word is culture, right? It's all about culture. In our league, the snack shack is not a financial thing. It's purely about.
You're not looking at, we got to draw.
We're not looking at bottom line. We're looking at strictly providing something that adds to the culture of the league. And just as a cool example, like we've already talked about this, but probably 65% of our league is lower divisions. So T-ball and what we call farm, which is all just machine pitch. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids. And most of those are young families that haven't been in our league for a long time. So they're kind of confused. What is this snack shack? And we require each family, for each player, you have to work 2 snack shack shifts. So roughly 2.5 hour shifts during a game on the majors fields. And a lot of those younger families have no idea what it is. And just this last weekend, like my wife and I were talking, my wife helps run our snack shack. And there was like a T-ball mom who did it for the first time. She's like, this is so much fun. I had no idea what this was, but this is so great. We're watching the field and there's a game going on and it's real baseball. And so it's totally about that. It's totally about culture. It's totally about buy-in, commitment to the league, helping the league be run by its own people, all that kind of thing.
And people complain about having to do those shifts, but then once they do, this is so fun.
Yeah, you mean more people.
We still work the grill even though I don't have to, just because it's just a fun thing to do, as Ben was saying.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's hit on one of our last topics, the fields, because the fields, they are beautiful. They're iconic in our community in many respects, but a lot of effort goes into maintaining these things, and they've changed over the years a little bit. How do the fields hold up during the rains we've had, and what are you guys finding is a big challenge with regards to that, if you're having any?
It's never ending. I will say this: there's always right before we went on the air, I got a call from our field guy that apparently currently Lenata Bay Little League is experiencing a flood. So I mean, it's just that. We were also talking about the weather. It's the rains have, I think, helped them look beautiful. I think all of our outfields look great. Yeah. We have turf at our field, which kind of helps. But it's just another one of those things that we have to constantly keep an eye on. I mean, we all have jobs, and probably all of us, at least once a day, is getting a message from somebody within our league about the field. This is happening, or this is a disaster, or this needs to happen. So it's a labor of love. The guys that do it, all of our leagues have a guy that's like in charge of the fields, and it's like a part-time job for that. Yep. And they put in the time, and that's why they look so.
Do they still have the fake? I remember Rolling Hills used to have the fake, or not fake, a permanent line, the white line in the outfield. Is that still there?
We do not. I think Lenata Bay may have it, and we've thought about putting it back in because even drawing that line gets a little wobbly as you go out. I blame it on the grass, not an unsteady hand, but
maybe hazard for players hitting literally
the night before. Yeah. But no, the fields and what
the field might have painted.
The fields you see, Chris Hammond's our field guy and does a great job, and you see people dragging afterwards. You see coaches watering it. What you don't see is he's out there on a Tuesday morning nail dragging, right? That we, before opening day on a Friday, all the board is out there dumping, 30 bags of conditioner, right, to get it ready. And so it really is a labor of love. During our game yesterday, a sprinkler was leaking, at third base. And so you're part coach, you're part, maintenance person, you're part plumber, and trying to deal with that and turn off the valve and make sure that it's not, impacting the game. But it is constant. I think Gopher season starting now, so we're going to have to deal with that.
We had a gopher that this is back when the kids were 10 and I was coaching. And so this gopher came up right near home plate. But every single game you'd cut up. So you'd have this kid and he's just looking at the gopher, but the pitch is going by. I'm like, you got to stop looking at the gopher. So at the end of the season,
We're going to have a gopher camp.
we're going to have the gopher camp come up and down. At the end of the season, though, we gave the gopher a certificate. And then I think we packed them up and moved them up to the gopher farm after the season.
So the pitching mounds, are they all the same height at each of these fields, or is that different? Because I remember as a kid, and as a pitcher, I mean, I pitched, I don't know if any of you guys were pitchers, but I hated it when sometimes that hole outside the, got really deep and you're filling it. And so are they all the same?
No.
And why not if they're not? And where?
So Little League regulation is from home plate. The pitching, what they call the pitching plate or the rubber, is supposed to be 6 to 12 inches above the level of home plate. So there's variance in the regulations already. And then you take into account the slope of the field. So for PVLL, our two main fields, the one at Valmonte, slopes from home plate, it slopes down to center field. And the field at Malaga Cove from center field slopes down to home plate. So if you look at the mounds, it looks like Valmonte is significantly taller than Malaga Cove. But when you actually laser scope it and you look at how high relative the pitching plate is to home plate, they're basically both about 8 inches in terms of elevation.
Okay.
Right? So there's regulations for everything in baseball.
Yeah.
There's a variance inside of those. I'm sure we're all somewhere inside that.
Yeah. Okay, but that, to your point, most kids is that they come up and like to dig a big hole right in front of the rubber, and then obviously the landing area you talk to. But that is also part of the field that you're building it back up with clay. You're trying to tamp it down. You're trying to keep it safe for the pitchers. That hole can get bad and their foot won't even be touching the rubber, depending. But we're always constantly part of the fields rebuilding that up. And also, our minors field mound is definitely lower than our major field mound because those kids are just learning to pitch, right? And so that one is definitely we're still within regulation then. But they're kind of traditionally what they are, but rebuilding a mound is a big effort, and we try and do the best we can. And yes, there may be some more pitcher-friendly parks and mounds than other ones.
Well, to that point, one of the really fun things is the outfield fences, right? So the dimensions of the field also is totally different between, and that's what's really fun about interleague is that your kids grow up being really comfortable with your fields, and then they'll go to these other fields, and they're all different. Like, I remember the first time we had to stop play because a horse is walking through the outfield, and I'm like, what are we doing? And the umpire's like, time's out. I'm like, what? We're seriously stopped the game for a horse? Like, how slow is this? Right? And like all that kind of stuff. Or like we're warming up in Lenata Bay a couple years ago, and my kid hits one over the first base foul line, and it goes bounding into PV drive. We're not watching for cars, So it's a lot of fun, like that part of it. All the field dimensions, all the settings, the sun's in your eyes here and there and whatever. All the conditioner at Rolling Hills. My kids love sliding into home plate at Lenata Bay because you start your slide halfway to home plate from third and you make it all the way at Lenata. Oh, it's because of the turf. They love it. Yeah. Turf. Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. All turf. They love sliding there because they're just like, it's like a slip and slide. They just keep going. Yeah. That's the really fun part about all that is all the different fields, all different settings. Like you said, they're all incredibly beautiful. We're so blessed and to have the facilities that we have here in the Hills.
Yeah. Steph.
Unbelievable.
All right, I want to end this discussion just hitting a little bit on All-Stars because last year we all know El Segundo from the district went on and won the World Series. How many of our leagues got to play against that team last year?
I believe we all did.
Right? All anyone have a really close game or a chance to win by chance? Give us
the last any of our teams had a chance to win. That team was PVLL's team 3 years ago now.
But we're talking last year. So
but that group of boys has been incredibly dominant from 10-year-old. So you have 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and 12-year-old All-Stars levels. And that group has been incredible from the very, very, very beginning.
So what was the closest score of any of the games with them last year?
I don't know. He was hanging with them for a little. I guess it was probably a 7 or 8 run game.
Okay.
They mercied almost every.
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah. It may have been Lappy hit a home run that cleared our majors outfield fence and maybe our minors outfield fence. People didn't even. It was gone and no one knew where it even went.
Ben talked about how you had to pause for the horses going by. I remember when we played them. Quite literally, you're not going to do it.
You couldn't even have a game.
Quite literally, everybody in their lineup, when a horse would go by, it's like, all right, let's take a break.
Yeah.
Just very good.
But it created a lot of buzz for Little League, and my kids definitely watched them. A bunch of people cheered for them. I was actually at the soccer game in El Segundo, but when they were doing the parade, and I think it brought a lot of attention to Little League and District 36. So it was great for that. And, to host it at Rolling Hills, that they started their journey at a Rolling Hills field is something,
That's right.
and I was there to watch they rolled, so maybe 3 or 4 games was fun.
So, again, going from my experiences when my boys were playing, there was always this little bit of contention between the parents and how we structure it. Because one side was like, oh, this is all about having fun. And then you got like, no, we want to win, right? So you got these two packs. So, and one way to have fun is to have more kids on the team versus having less of the, say, the better players, right? So are you guys all juggling that the same, or do you each have different amount of kids on that team? How are you approaching it? What's your philosophy when it comes to the all-star team?
I think it's a lot easier, probably, ironically, for Lenape Bay and Silver Spur having less people because there's less kids to draw from. At Rolling Hills and PV, I won't speak for them, but they have so many talented kids that could qualify the team. I imagine it's really difficult, but that is where it gets hard, where it is developmental, but all-stars is, to me, it's competitive. It's about winning at that point. Of course, you still have the Little League concepts, right? The Little League pledge you read before the game. But I think all of us try to put the best team on the field to hopefully have a run first time, I think, in our district that somebody went that far. But, Ben is humble, but watch out for this team this year. They won state championship when they were 10, right?
Nice.
And now they're 12. You didn't like to talk about it, but we'll be hosting at Lenape Bay. Come on down. No, but it's a good. This is where Little League's rules have tightened up a little bit. When we first, so that group, I've had 3 years now of my son's age all-stars, 9s, 10s, and 11s. And when we first formed our team in that El Segundo team, we played them as they were 10-year-olds, we were 9-year-olds. I think we had 13 kids on our team that year. In the window there, you could have anywhere from 10 players up to like 15. So it used to be that you could have as many as you want. The way that Little League kind of tagged onto that was the number of players on your roster dictated how many coaches you could have. So if you only had 9 or 10 players, you could only have one coach. If you had 11 or 12 players, you could have 2 coaches. If you had 13 or more, you could have 3 coaches. And the real kicker is that there's always has to be a coach in the dugout. So if you only have 1 coach, you have 2 kids coaching the bases. Right. If you have 2 coaches, you have 1 kid coaching the bases. Anyways, that's old news. The new news is now Little League basically says every team's going to have 12. You're going to bat everyone. It's super equitable. There's no rules on who plays how much or who pitches how much or anything.
Nice.
You bat 1 through 12. There's no other regulations for anything. That'll probably change again this year because there's...
Is there still a pitch count, though, on these?
There's pitch counts, yeah. But there's no defensive play requirements. There's no this, that, or the other. The only requirement is you got to take 1 at bat and run the bases one.
At least 2 defensive.
Yeah, and I think that is the hard part for, building, because there's all-stars 10, 11, 12-year-old teams, and sometimes an extra one at 10 to get the youngers in. But you are trying to build a team that's going to be competitive, and but you're also building a team. It can't all be first basemen. It can't all be pitchers. And one thing that you notice, and you find this in travel ball, but certainly all-stars, is a lot of your best players have played shortstop and second base and pitch and caught. You need 3 outfielders, and that's really important. And finding those kids who, 1, are good at it, 2, willing to play it, but also understand that importance can really influence how that team is composed. And so same thing like when you're drafting a team, earlier in the season. And so it is very hard because all of us have kids that work hard, that are worthy to be on that team. And I know our coaches and committee agonize over that, about making sure that 1, it's a good team, and 2, you're rewarding the kids who have worked hard and deserve to be on that.
One of the things, I can't speak for the other leagues, but in our league, we allow the first 5 or 6, depending on the level, players to be assigned via a kid vote. So at the end of the season, we hand out ballots to every player at the upper division at each age level, and they vote for who they think the all-stars should be. So that's, you start with whatever number that is from your team comes directly from their peers, voting them in. And then that's where what Tony's saying is 100% correct. You kind of have to formulate a roster after that.
Do you see that kid being voted in as the best player or as one that kids tend to just want to be on the team? Are you seeing
kids get a ride for the month? But there's there is what there is. Yeah, there's always the fun. That's always the fun, mysterious part of it. And open up the envelope and see who the kids put on there.
All right. Well, last question for today. This has been going on for decades. Merging.
Will we ever see that in our life? So the question, will we see it in our lifetime, and do we want it?
Well, hold on. It's already happened. How about that?
Okay.
So we didn't even know how accurate you are, no?
This year we obviously not up to age 12, but for 13 and 14-year-olds, we've all come together to form one Palos Verdes Peninsula. We're calling it Palos Verdes Peninsula Little League or Junior League, because as we get to those age groups, none of us have enough to form a full league. So we have merged in that sense.
Okay.
But these, as you said, these discussions happen all the time,
Right.
And it would be logistically really.
You're asking volunteers to do mergers and acquisitions in their free time, which is not an easy task.
There's enough attorneys on the Hill.
And we would have.
Well, a lot of it's controlled by Little League.
they M&A.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is controlled. Little League gets national controls, districting, and boundaries. So they would have to be brought in. Right now, our district has 8 teams, 8 different leagues. It's a nice round number.
Right.
Competition is great. I think the level of competition is pretty even, pretty good. But one change that is coming next year for the 2025 year of Little League is Little League International is allowing kids at the youngest levels from 4 to 7 years old to sign up for whatever league they want to sign up for. So it's not related to their boundaries of where their house lives or where their house is, or what school they go to.
But
So any kid. So after that, if they've played in that league, they can continue on.
Yeah.
And the reason they do that number, excuse me, is basically from 8 years old on, you're all-star eligible. So you have to prove affiliation with that league from your first years to be able to be an all-star if you're quote-unquote.
So that's
that may
that's
lead,
good.
that may lead
Someone could say, maybe someone that was going to go to Silver Spur says, PV is the big league, and we've got. I'm going to send my kid there, so that might hurt.
Yeah.
A Silver Spur, which we don't want to see. Of course, unless there's going to.
Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that rule, but it is one of those kind of reflexes to the club at attrition.
Yeah.
Right. So supposedly, what Little League International is doing is they're trying to stay outside of the rigidity of what the traditional boundaries and structures are, and try to make it a little bit more welcoming for people that otherwise would be like, I'm not playing Little League. There's so many rules and regulations, blah, 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 blah. Because most club teams draw from a wider area than what your league draws from. So, some of the kids that you play club with, you might not be able to play Little League with because of boundaries. So this is one of the ways that Little League's trying to be a little bit less restrictive in terms of who can play where.
That could be interesting. Any final thoughts? Anyone want to leave us with a thought? Anything on your mind, how to sum it up?
Thanks for having us, Joe.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the channel. I think we have Air Force One ready to take these presidents back to Williamsport for a secret meeting or something. Something's going on. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time.